When Insomniac's Spider-Man for the PS4 came out in 2018, no one would shut up about it. And to be completely honest, I was no different. My freshman year of college, you could go dorm room to dorm room on my floor, and someone would have been playing Spider-Man for the PS4. That's how big of a deal that game was. It became a household game across the planet. And then, in 2020, Insomniac continued to build upon the hype train that they had created and let people live out their Into the Spider-Verse dreams, and gifted white people the ability to play as the exaggerated swagger of a black teen, with Spider-Man Miles Morales. But for the past 3 years, people have waited in great anticipation for the true sequel of the original Spider-Man for the PS4. And as of October 20th, 2023, we finally made it. So, is Spider-Man 2 for the PlayStation 5 a good game? Yeah, like, of course it is. I think that was a given. Honestly, I didn't want to review this game because I genuinely thought that I was going to have nothing better to say about this game than it's good. And for a while, as I played it, that was my review of the game. But the more hours I sunk into it and the more layers I peeled away, I started having a lot more thoughts about it than I thought I would. The game is not bad, which is what weird Spider-Man Twitter and weird picky gamers would want you to believe, so don't let them convince you otherwise. In fact, I would say that Insomniac's Spider-Man 2 for the PlayStation 5 is spectacular, but I think part of the package of being born a male in this generation is that you like Spider-Man. It's pretty hard to find any boy between the ages of 12 to 30 who doesn't like Spider-Man. And I'm no different. I've consumed so much Spider-Man content, including all of the American live-action Spider-Man movies, all of the animated series except the 1967 one, and I've read many comics. I'm telling you this because I want to separate this game as someone who enjoys video games and someone who enjoys Spider-Man separately. I found that when I put it like that, my feelings drastically change on both sides. For the first part, I will start with Spider-Man 2 as a video game with no spoilers, and then after that, I'll review the game as a piece of Spider-Man media with heavy spoilers. So, let's start with the gameplay. Honestly, the best things I have to say about this game is its gameplay. This is a next-gen game through and through. I've criticized Sony's story-first, gameplay-second approach to their first-party games in the past. This game really stands out as fun to play. They've taken their ability system from Spider-Man Miles Morales and have built their combat more around that, with gadgets taking a backseat. I will say I miss some of the gadgets from the first game, but nothing that really bugged me. The combat is slightly different than its predecessors as they push more enemies on you and force you to focus on combos that mix abilities and gadgets together. I like this approach more because in the past games, even on the hardest difficulty, you can get away with only pressing circle and square. But that's not so much the case this time around. And plus, they added a parry system which you have to use in boss fights. It's not as perfect of a parry system as, say, Resident Evil 4 or even Sekiro, but it's enough to get by. Once Peter and Miles' kit are fully fleshed out, the game is so much fun. Honestly, this might be a personal preference, but Miles is a little bit more fun to play as, which honestly surprised me a lot. When it comes to ability upgrading and gadget upgrades, I think one of these things has a really good progression system, and the other does not. Ability upgrading feels pretty linear, and the bonuses to your abilities really add to your kit in the late game. Gadget upgrading, on the other hand, kind of feels lackluster. The game uses 3 different currencies across all purchases made within the menu. So, the same thing that you're using to upgrade your gadgets is the same thing that you use to buy suits, and also the same thing to upgrade your suit tech, which is tied to how much health you have, how much damage you deal, how many focus bars you have, and also your traversal speeds. I'm not a fan of these 3 major upgrades being tied to the same point system, but I guess it is an incentive to do things more around the city. As for traversal in this game, I cannot imagine a world where I go back to the first game, which is crazy because I thought that game had perfected swinging. Insomniac has now given players the ability to turn off swing assistance so that physics takes a greater hold when swinging. So all those Spider-Man 2 movie game dick riders can finally have their cake too. Traversal also now has the addition of the wingsuit. I was really worried about the addition of the wingsuit when it was first revealed. I thought it would be kind of a pointless addition to a game that already had great traversal. But with the game's extended map, it is absolutely needed to cross the East River. I will say, I wish that there were less wind currents within the city because it's kind of like fast travel, and it feels weird using them to cross parts of the city that aren't separated by water. But that's just a small thing. Speaking of New York City, I remember a few months ago there were people complaining that it was the same map, which is one of the most head-ass critiques I could possibly think of this game. Cause one, it's not. The map has been greatly expanded with so much more to do within the city, with different areas getting much more fleshed out environments. And two, it's fucking Spider-Man. Where else would an open world Spider-Man game take place? I do have one critique of the map though, and that's that I wish there were a little bit more scripted moments tied to areas and buildings of the game. You start quests by going to the location the game tells you to go. I thought it would be kinda cool if random events could trigger at certain times or locations, sort of the way that Arkham Knight did with the Man-Bat. It's still a thing that could be added to a third game, so all in all, the map and the environments are really solid. And if we're talking about environments, I gotta talk about the next amazing thing in this game, and that is its presentation. I am so happy we are getting games that are finally looking and feeling next generation. It's so good that Insomniac literally flexes on you in the tutorial. It is one of the most electric openings to a video game of all time. On a graphical standpoint, this game is just incredible. I should mention that I played this game on fidelity mode, and when I turned it to performance mode, the game did look noticeably less in quality to the point where the 60 FPS even couldn't do it for me, but I'm gonna chalk that up to personal preference. I've heard that many people are still enjoying the graphics on performance, so to each their own. What's also incredible is the draw distance. I do not think I have seen a game that genuinely has this impressive of a draw distance. And again, Insomniac flexes on you to be like, hey, check out how fast this loading is. And then they do it again.
Oh, that was crazy. I've never actually experienced that sort of atmosphere a game before.
It was amazing. So yeah, when we're talking about graphics and loading, this is top notch. Now, while I do think the graphics look amazing, I don't think I love every art design choice in this game. I think the original suits that Insomniac has made for its world are really hit or miss. Now, a lot of people don't like the white accents on Peter's suits, but I don't mind them. I actually really like how the new advanced suit looks in the game. The colors are perfect. But dude, they took Miles's perfect suit and did something kinda heinous with it. Obviously, I can't show it because of spoilers, but most of you know what I'm talking about, and it's rough. Now, there's a lot of pointless arguments being thrown around about faces, especially with Peter and MJ, so here's my two-piece on it. I do not think the Peter and MJ faces are ugly. They literally just look like two normal white people, guys. Some of y'all need to chill out. What I have a problem with is the way that they chose to mocap these faces. It is abundantly clear which models are using their actor as part of the face model and which models are using someone's facial capture and then slapping someone else's face on top of that. Peter and MJ are the biggest culprits of the latter. In the scenes with Peter, MJ, and Harry, you'll have Harry who looks like the most realistic human being out of the three of them, and he's emoting really nice, and then there'll be something just kinda off with Peter and MJ. I'm not saying that their faces aren't emoting, but next to Harry, they'll look off enough to where you can notice it. I honestly first really noticed this when Black Cat makes her 1 minute appearance on screen, cause her face is just showing a wide range of emotions, and there was also a moment where I straight up went, holy shit, that looks like Erica Lindbeck. So all in all, I don't think the faces are ugly, but I do think that there are a few motion capture choices that are kind of hindering the performances of this game. Especially because Yuri Lowenthal is acting his pussy off in this game. So when I read the comics, I don't hear any of the live action Peter Parkers in my head. I hear a mix between Yuri Lowenthal and Josh Keaton. Yuri Lowenthal gives the best adult performance of Peter Parker, and it's not even a contest. He's just incredible. Najee Jeter is the same, where I kind of hear his voice and Shameik Moore's voice whenever I'm reading Miles. Laura Bailey is Laura Bailey. She is perfect for her incarnation of Mary Jane, and I could not imagine any other voice voicing her. Big shout out to Graham Phillips, Mr. Evan Goldman himself, for killing the role of Harry Osborn. And of course, man, Tony Todd is just a god. But with that, I think I've expanded on everything that I can say about Spider-Man 2 as a video game. And honestly, this game is going to be seen as one of the greats. On a technical and just fun level, this game manages to surpass its predecessors, which is a tall task. And honestly, in any other year, this would 100% be Game of the Year. I saw an interview where the creators of the game were like, we focus on making our games feel like they are worth their $70 investment, and it really does. But now, I gotta flip to the disgruntled comic side of my brain, and that's where I really start having some different thoughts about this game. From here on out, it is full spoilers, so please go here to avoid spoilers if you don't want to see them. I first want to say that the side quests of this game are the best Spider-Man stuff this game has to offer. These simple quests where you just help people are so deeply rooted in being the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. It's like watching the best episodes of an animated series. As for the main story though, straight up, I don't think the main story of this game is as good as the first. Now, I would say that it's better than Spider-Man Miles Morales, but that brings up a whole other separate issue I have with this game that I'll get to later. The highs in this game are higher than the first, but man, when this game slows down, it is grinding itself against the concrete. The first act starts really strong, but then gradually declines to a really slow start of Act 2, which then becomes a roller coaster of great and bad moments, and then the third act starts really strong and gets to an amazing climax, but then its falling action and its ending finishes a little weak. The pacing is a little rough, but it's a video game, and I get it's really hard to do good pacing in a video game. I think the reason that I resonate more with the story of the first game was because it was super down to basics. It was an isolated Peter Parker story that didn't do anything flashy, and then it stuck its landing perfectly. But then the end credits of that first game opened up Insomniac's Spider-Man's world a lot, and honestly, I was both excited and worried about these prospects because the ideas that they were starting were very cool, but I was worried that they bit off more than they could chew. And they kinda did. The two biggest things that they revealed in their end credits scenes was Venom and Miles. As for Venom, I think they did a pretty good job. I'm fairly satisfied with the way that they adapted Venom. As for Miles, that was the first thing that they tackled, and honestly, as of this game, I have still yet to feel satisfied by his character. I will say I think it's hilarious that he's like a god in this world. As for his writing, I feel like both of his arcs have fallen a bit flat. I do think that it's a bit unfair because they have to compete with the writing of two of the best superhero movies of the past decade, but still, I have not liked the choices that they have made for him writing-wise and design-wise. Genuinely, what the fuck is this suit? What is this? If I have to look at this in a third game, I'm going to lose my mind. The character arc Miles goes through in this game is about him not giving into rage and killing the man who killed his father, which is a really good concept for Miles. But when you get to these scenes with Miles and Martin Lee, they're just not doing it. And honestly, with the way that they're setting up Miles to be New York's main Spider-Man in this game, I kind of wish the arc that he had in this game and the arc that he had in his own spin-off were switched. Because Miles' whole arc in his own spin-off game was about him becoming his own Spider-Man and not just being Peter's sidekick. There could have even been a really touching story there that could have spanned this game and the third game. But now, I kind of don't know where Miles' motivations are at the end of this game. Also, switching these arcs kinda goes hand in hand with his whole college essay dilemma. He's trying to put into words who he is. So an arc about him coming into his own outside of Peter kinda fits like a glove. Having Miles get over his father's killer is a good way to start his journey. because that's something that every Spider-Man has to learn first the hard way. And it can lead into many possibilities. I really want them to do something interesting with Miles outside of his animated movie, because he deserves it. Also, if you're gonna tie music to his personality, you have to at least make the music good. Please, no more of this weird penis electro music. And speaking of arcs that don't feel fulfilled, I'm also not sold on MJ's arc in this world. Personally, I'm not really a fan of the Lois Lane-ification of MJ, but I do think it makes sense in this world. The issue with this incarnation of MJ is that someone at Insomniac desperately wants MJ to be cool, but in a very specific way, and it's just not working. MJ is cool in the comics because her life fully exists outside of Peter's. She has interests and things that she wants to do that do not relate to Peter or Spider-Man at all, not even to New York most of the time. Her conflict comes from the fact that she is her own person and can exist on her own. But she also loves Peter and wants to have a life with him, but him being Spider-Man hinders that. Making her a reporter and then having her write stories about the world that Spider-Man leaves behind when he's superheroing is the antithesis of making her her own character. Also, they did not learn their lesson from the first game. Everyone and their mother said that the worst part of the first game was the Mary Jane sections. And you can tell Insomniac wanted to do something about it, but they love their specific version of MJ so much that they didn't want to make her unplayable, which led them to giving MJ a third-person shooter section? That's not how you fix it. It sucks too because they kinda had the goose that laid the golden egg with Venom and the symbiote. Could you imagine if the MJ section of this game was like the Ashley section of the new RE4? Make the stealth gameplay be tied to horror. 1, it would make for an extremely fun gameplay section, and 2, it fleshes out how scary and dangerous the symbiote is. They kinda tried to do it, but it was a linear section that was super short, and you kinda can't lose it, so it doesn't really do its job. I think Insomniac's talent for writing a very good Peter Parker story is starting to become a dual-edged sword, because I don't think that they are able to replicate that good of writing in any of their other characters, which is kind of a problem considering the fact that they literally have a deuteragonist in their narrative, which gets even worse because now they're trying to add a tritagonist. I'm really worried about them trying to add Cindy Moon to the equation. If she's gonna be treated as the new novice being trained under Miles, it is way too early for that because Miles needs to be fleshed out more. And honestly, that is the basis of the biggest complaint I have so far with this iteration of Spider-Man and his world. I think they're trying to accomplish all of the concepts the fans want to see. The fans want to see Peter retired and happy and with a child, and they're trying to do that. They're trying to create a world where Miles and Cindy can be the new Spider People, but the thing is, the reason people want these things in the comics is because we have had 60 years of Spider-Man history. That is 60 years worth of stories that we want to see have some sort of happy conclusion for Peter. We've only had Insomniac's Spider-Man world for 5 years and 3 games between them. The world still feels fresh, and there are aspects of the characters that were introduced to us in the first game that still aren't fleshed out. It feels like we're speedrunning from year 8 of Peter's life to year 20. It's going way too fast and growing at a rate that's too hard to keep up with, especially when creating a world that only exists in these 25-ish hour video games. And honestly, these failures to write compelling characters outside of Peter really takes this game down a notch on the Spider-Man media scale. The cracks are starting to form, and I'm a little uneasy about the story Insomniac is trying to tell. I'm not saying that it's an impossible case, but there's a lot of work to be done. But also, as I say all of this, I cannot say that this game has a bad story or is even bad Spider-Man media. It's extremely fun, and I'm not at all disappointed with the story that was presented. Do I wish some things were a little different or fleshed out? Yeah, a bit. but they still managed to create a story that hits all the beats of a great Spider-Man story and craft an unforgettable experience. Overall, I really enjoyed the game. As a video game, I had no doubts that this was gonna be a good game, but Insomniac delivered something that was even better than I could have imagined. With combat that feels fresh and fun, a traversal system that is now the golden standard for Spider-Man games, and a story that, sure, might have had some issues, but still managed to be quite good, this game will be remembered for years to come by both Spider-Man fans and video game fans alike.
What'd you see?
Spider-Man 3.
Why do you want to go by yourself? Why didn't you ask me to go?
Because I needed to get away, you know, with work and you and the kids. Sometimes I just need some time to myself.
I need time for myself. I want time for myself too. You're not the only one. I like Spider-Man.